what's up? As I said, this is actually going to be a dual review for these particular figures. I got these figures at different times, but I was able to find them both at Target respectively, just on different days, of course. Of course, we are talking about the new Playmates Gorosaurus from 1968 from Destroy All Monsters, of course, and Rodan from 1956, aka from his original debut film, which is really, really great. Ultimately, kind of spoiler alert, I think these figures are great. But either way, all these new Bandai, I guess, Classic line? Oh, it's called the Playmates Classic line that are coming out. They all have these similar packaging that we've seen. It is kind of weird, though, because you do get the Bandai Godzilla 2000 in the background, which is really, really weird. But apparently what the thing is that companies don't actually own their molds for these particular figures. Toho owns the molds, so that's very interesting. So that explains a lot, like the first wave. But once again, at the back of these, you do get all the figures in the wave. Let's just take one of them out because they're both practically identical. Of course, you have Rodan. Of course, you have Gorosaurus, which is a new Jet Jaguar, which we reviewed. And we got the Burning Godzilla, which is actually one that I don't have, and I don't plan on getting it because there are better offerings for this particular figure or particular design, which is kind of weird for me to say because I'm usually a big fan of the 1995 design. I will say, though, seeing this guy in person, it is probably one of their best Godzillas that they put out, so that's saying much. But these three right here are really great, I think. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at both Gorosaurus and Rodan himself. Right, and here we have Rodan and Gorosaurus out of the packaging. Well, they've been out of the packaging, and I gotta say, these are some of the best offerings from Playmate Toys I have ever seen so far. Usually I continuously say they continue to get really, really better and really well done with their molding and their paint apps. These figures are, I think, arguably some of the best ones that they've done so far. You have the Rodan and you have the Gorosaurus. These are both kind of, and it's really, really cool. While Rodan is a very popular monster in general, I don't think I've ever gotten the 56 design. I never usually do. The only ones I have are the Final Wars one and the King of the Monsters NECA one. So I don't really have too many Rodan figures, so it is really, really cool to actually get the OG design. I think it's a really, really great design in general. Gorosaurus is probably one of my, I think along with Anguirus, I think, is probably one of my favorite underdog kaijus that don't really get used all too much because he's once again, he's a dinosaur. It's really, really cool to see like more kind of dinosaur kaijus, and I think this is a really, really great figure. This is actually the first time I've actually owned a Gorosaurus, because there are a few that have been out, like old ones, and I think even like YMS F figures that are like third party, but they're relatively expensive. Like getting the older Gorosaurus is ridiculously expensive. So you actually have this guy, and you also have the Bandai. There's going to be a Monster Movie Series 1 coming out relatively soon. I don't know exactly when, but the Rodan is really, really cool. I really love like the paint apps and everything on it. It's like actually really, really good in terms of sculpting, which is great. Gorosaurus is really, really great too. Sculpting on it is fantastic. It just shows you how much like they have like kind of, I don't know if these are exactly new molds or they're just reused molds, because because the Jet Jaguar one I know for a fact is a new mold. But other than that, I'm not completely sure. So let's jump into each individual one real quick, then we'll get into some size comparisons and see what they go with. First up, we have Rodan from the 1956 film, his original debut film, where there are actually two Rodans, which I don't think a lot of people now know, but I'm pretty sure a lot of hardcore people who've seen Rodan know that there's two Rodans. But man, I gotta say the face sculpt looks absolutely incredible. It looks very much like Rodan does in the original, his original film. One thing I will say, and it's also, there isn't any, although, like, I can't remember I do think Rodan has actual pupils, so one thing that they actually do have is he has just pure black eyes, which is, I don't think, completely accurate, but other than that, I do think it's kind of okay. I mean, if you are relatively good at, like, sculpting and, well, painting, you could paint pupils in there with him, but I actually don't know if the original had pupils, so, you know, don't take my word for it. But it is really, really cool. It is really well done, sculpted, like it really bumps and grooves. You also get the gold kind of color right here, along with the like little fingers at the top, which look really, really great. Then you got the back, which I think I love this. I actually love like the kind of divide of the wings here, like the little tail and the legs, which look really, really good. I love the gold continues to show up here with this kind of like jade kind of color, which looks really, really pretty. And you also get to see more of the gold up top here with the horns and the beak itself, which is really, really great. I think this is a beautiful Rodan figure. One of my, like, I really, really love this, the original, his original design. I think it's so super, super cool. And it was really, really cool to see, like, kind of elements of that design come to King of the Monsters, which was really, really cool for the MonsterVerse Rodan. But yeah, really, really good, really well detailed, I have to say. I think Rodan looks phenomenal. And here we have Gorosaurus, aka one of my favorite boys, which is really, really cool. So, a problem that this guy has, I think, that's still a little bit of a problem with the Playmates figures in general, is they are in, like, kind of relatively weird poses. I get what they're going for, but at the same time, I feel like it's just kind of beneficial for a character specifically like this just to be kind of in a neutral pose, which he kind of is, but how it's molded, as you can kind of tell, it is a little different and a little unique, but you could definitely tell what they're going with for this particular figure. This figure looks absolutely phenomenal. Like, the paint apps, this kind of like dark blue, or kind of dark green, kind of like dark blue, actually I don't know what the heck kind of color that is, kind of like a green or a turquoise. I don't know if it's bringing it up on camera that well, but it is really, really great. The sculpted detail on this figure is really, really wonderful too. Like, you get the back spikes, which look phenomenal, then the tail, like, you'll get all the creases and all the scales and everything looks absolutely great. And here we have the head, of course, which looks really, really good. At first I was a little worried that just kind of how Gorosaurus is designed, I thought it was going to come out a little derpy, but I mean, it is kind of derpy just because of how, like, his design is based off kind of like old dinosaur designs, so you're going to kind of expect that, which is pretty fun and pretty cool, I do gotta say. But yeah, the head looks absolutely great. The eyes, by the way, like the eyes with this guy, I think I complained about like the Godzillas and like other monsters that had this like the kind of like eyes, and they don't do a really good job, like the Space Godzilla, the Shin Godzilla. But with this, they very much improved, I think, with the paint apps on the eye. It looks absolutely phenomenal. Then you get the mouth too, which you get like the teeth are kind of like, you actually get to see like little things and gums connected with the teeth, which is really, really good. I think this is only also just for precaution too, so kids don't hurt themselves when playing with this, because this is technically like a $15, not even a $15, like a $12 toy, which is really, really incredible to think like you're getting these at this amount of detail for this little kind of figure for 20. Like, it isn't like a movie monster figure, or it's not on the quality of a YMSF figure, I believe is what the acronym is, which those are really, really great, really cool, but they are relatively more expensive. And for your average, like, I would say Godzilla fan, this is great because they are only $12, which is phenomenal, like, that they are only that much. But yeah, I do think both these are probably my favorite Playmates figures, I think, to date, because they look so good. The detail on them looks really, really great. And the posability looks really, really good. And it's also this Rodan, not the Rodan, it uses the Gorosaurus, and I guess, let me compare. Yeah, both these use a kind of harder kind of plastic, as opposed to, it isn't like a ridiculously hard plastic like the Kong or the Gigan, a few, like, that was a part of the first wave. They're not as, like, hard, but they are, like, it very much reminds me of these are, like, what it reminds me of is the Bandai vinyl, the US Bandai America vinyl figures, like, that you would see at Toys R Us. That's kind of like what these are harkened to, like, I would say plastic-wise, where it's not too ridiculously hard of where you can see it's hollow and it will break easily, but it is really, really good. So with that out of the way, those are like some of my thoughts on these figures. I think they're great figures, so let's get into some size comparisons and see what they scale with from different monster figures from different companies. Alright, and here's Gorosaurus and Rodan compared to some other kaiju from different companies. Of course, we have the Monster Movie Series Bandai Japan Jet Jaguar. We have the NECA 1964 Godzilla. We have the Raymond Toys YMS Behemoth. along with the SH Figure Monster Art Kong, and along with the Bandai America vinyl Gigan from back in the day. So you kind of see what the scaling is with these guys. They work perfectly fine with the other scaling compared to some of the other figures. Like, so for example, let's just move the Godzilla out of the way for a moment, and like we compare him to like the Bandai figures right here, which are the Gigan and the Jet Jaguar. These are kind of all with the same scale. I mainly use the Gigan for comparison just because of the scaling of it all, because these are technically kind of what the successor of these are, like, because they're practically kind of the same figure line, the Bandai Classics, kind of the Bandai vinyl with the Classics line from Playmates. So it is kind of cool to see that these all relatively fit in scale, and these are kind of toys that I would collect as a kid and I would have and play with. I would have loved to have like these affordable figures at an affordable price and not like have to spend $150 for them. So that's really, really cool. All right, and here we have Gorosaurus and Rodan compared to some other figures from the Playmates line. Just in general, we have the Kong from Kong Skull Island, we have the first Gigan from Final Wars, and we have the Jet Jaguar. So these are all three are the newest figures in the line, and it can definitely show. I do think this Gigan still holds up relatively well. I do think there are some like issues that I have with it, like the lack of kind of like maybe articulation right here within the this scythe to like rotate it so it is properly rotated, and also just generally how the kind of plastic that they use for these particular ones comparative to these guys. The Jet Jaguar still has the issue of not being able to stand up, of course, but it is still a really, really cool figure, like, and I really am glad to have like really any Jet Jaguar figure I can get my hands on. But yeah, it kind of shows, this is also kind of a good way to show the evolution of how far Playmates has come with doing these figures. I think they've really taken fan feedback with these particular figures and done a really, really great job improving them. I think these two right here, Gorosaurus and Rodan, still, I think they are the top tier Playmates figures, I think, out of this line. And if they continue to go on the path that they've been doing with these, like, even with the Jet Jaguar, these three figures right here, I do think they are going to be really, really good, and they're going to be on quality, on par with like Bandai vinyls, hopefully down in the future. So I'm very excited to see this line continue. And here we have Rodan, Jet Jaguar, and Gorosaurus all ready for a battle to fight whatever monster comes their way. Overall thoughts, I just figured I'd put Jet Jaguar in here because I think he is a part of this conversation as well. I do think these are some of the best Playmates figures Playmates has done for the Godzilla line, their Godzilla Classic line. And I think hopefully we continue to see this kind of quality, this kind of sculpting, this kind of paint work, especially like with the Gorosaurus. I think this Gorosaurus is practically perfect, I think, in my opinion. There are the few, like, they still have the few errors, like with, not errors, but like the few problems of like getting him in dynamic poses, and it doesn't just, they're kind of wonky sometimes, but like either that, it works for Gorosaurus. I think the Rodan is absolutely phenomenal. I'm very happy to have a 1956 design for this character. I'm really, really glad. The Jet Jaguar, once again, I love Jet Jaguar. I loved how he was a big part of Singular Point. I really love Godzilla vs. Megalon, probably one of my first Godzilla films I was introduced. That in '85, two very different films. But so I just have an affinity for the and love for Jet Jaguar as a character. Gorosaurus, one of my favorite underdog kaijus, I think, and really should be utilized a lot more. I actually want this guy in the Monsterverse. I think he would be really, really cool. But overall, I do think Playmates is just continuously doing a really, really great job with these Bandai vinyls. They are relatively hard to kind of find because of Target, like, kind of stores being, actually somebody on the Kaiju Crew Discord actually said this, that they are just really putting on one case at a time. So that's why you don't see a whole lot of these. And there's, and if you are trying to find these, they aren't going to be with your traditional toys. They're actually going to be like with the NECA and McFarlane stuff in the electronics section. So if you are looking for these particular figures, Rodan and Gorosaurus, go to there, and don't pay for like the higher prices online, because I assure you, you will find these guys. I got lucky and found them. So, but yeah, I do think these are great figures. I'm really excited to see where Playmates continues. I really want to see, apparently they're going to be doing a 1933 King Kong, which sounds phenomenal, and I'm very excited about that. Will it top the NECA one? Probably not, but it's going to still be cool to have because it is really because that 1933 design. There's really not a lot of figures of it, so I was really happy to get the NECA one, even though it's technically not the 1933 one. So, but yeah, I'm very excited to see where this the Bandai Creation line goes. Hopefully, we get to see some 2.0 figures along the way. We get to see like new versions of the Shin Godzilla, Space Godzilla, and many more Godzilla figures. So there's that. So yeah, that's this figure review Friday. It's a little bit of a shorter one just because there's really not too much detail to go in and not really too much articulation. There's like they have articulation like within the head, like the arms, especially for Gorosaurus, and the tail as well. But that's pretty much it. It's basically a kind of what do you expect for a kind of classic Bandai vinyl kind of S figure. So with that being said, make sure to hit like and subscribe and hit the little bell notification so you get notified when we upload Mythical Mountain Monday, What's in the Box Wednesday, and Figure Review Fridays. Also check us out on Instagram and Mercari as well. I am also on Facebook as well. You can check that out. All links will be down below. So with that being said, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And if you can find these guys, happy hunting. Peace, y'all.